Okay. Morning, everyone. Last but not least, we're the construction management group. I'm Brad Reaver, joined by my team members, Corey Cody, and Chase Noikos. And as Professor Dowden said, Wyatt, our project manager, is joining over Zoom. So we did the critical process, logistical, financial elements of the construction phase of the HSTEM building. This is a quick outline of our presentation, which covers some of the most important things we did throughout the project, those being the estimate, the construction schedule, and the logistical issues. One of the first challenges we faced was with current market conditions. There's a lot of supply chain disruptions. To counter this challenge, we decided the best thing to do would be early ordering of materials. And to do this, the owner would have to give the contractor a letter of intent so that they could order these materials and stage them prior to the construction phase. By doing this, it's going to decrease the financial risk and also speed up the construction process and prevent delays.
Okay, so now the speakers are talking. So another challenge we had was the cross-laminated timber decking. It was such a massive quantity of decking, and the only product or the only manufacturing plant for this decking is in Dothan, Alabama. And using SmartLam's data, we calculated that it would take 39 individual shipments of this decking to Houghton for the HSTEM building. Inherently, each of these 39 shipments lies on the critical path. So with so much variability in each of these 39 shipments, there's a huge potential for our schedule to be off and our schedule to be pushed further into winter. And as we all know, construction in the winter does not happen in the Keweenaw. It could slow progress or even halt progress completely. So we identified that using cross-laminated timber from Alabama was certainly a challenge and exposes the owner and the contractor to significant risk in both schedule and financial risk. The next challenge, if you guys want to go to the next slide, yep, perfect. The Micropile Foundation. So as a result of the existing steam tunnel, below the deep foundation of the Chemical Sciences building, a micropile foundation is needed. And not only this, but micropiling represents 3.3% of the entire project's cost. So to remediate this, micropiles just need to be driven before excavation. And then we'll just excavate around the micropiles. And if you guys go to the next slide, you can see this is what a micropile looks like. And this is the rig that we'd have to take into a 20-foot vertical face excavation wall. So the next challenge is owner provided equipment. So there will likely be a large amount of owner provided equipment. And as we know, owner provided equipment is a red flag across the industry. And so to alleviate this, to mitigate this risk, we recommend the design build firm onboard a specialty firm. And per the Spearin doctrine, this would reduce the risk for the owner by placing the risk on the contractor and the design build firm. And next slide, please.
So here we have our total estimate broken down into each individual bid package, and then our direct and indirect costs at the bottom. As you can see, we came up with a total of $22.6 million, which seems like a lot, but in reality, the actual building is much more than that. And due to the design level that we've received up to this point, and there being no MEP engineering done, we had to basically estimate this off square footage basis, and it was the best information that we had, the most accurate information that we had, but it's basically leading to an underwhelming bid on our end. And also, this doesn't account for any of the interior furnishings or lab equipment or anything. It's basically that number's for walls and doors and windows inside. That's basically what we have going on there. And then we have our bonding insurance and then general overhead and then our contingency, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But we had to inflate contingency due to the CLT panels and shipping, and pretty much it's risky, so we had to inflate that a bit. So some of the considerations for our estimate, we use data from RS means, and we utilize a location factor to adjust those unit prices. And then we used RS means from 2017, so we inflated our cost by 17% for the consumer price index. And then, like I had stated already, we basically broke our estimate off of the original architectural drawings. So that, I mean, caused issues, but and then we basically worked with every other group the best we could and got plans from everybody and basically did what we could with what we had. And then the last part there, the economics of the present and future time value of money were considered in all aspects to develop a refined estimate. And that's just basically accounting for inflation and fuel prices going up and the shipping cost being extremely inflated.
All right, so here you can see basically what is our critical path schedule. Like Corey said about the estimate, there's a lot of ambiguity about the drawings that we've received, so we had to be extra careful not to short the schedule. We can always cut days off, but we can't really add more without penalty. So a lot of the major milestones are listed here. Like when the 100-ton crane comes on site, that will really depend on how long it's on site, will really depend on the just-in-time delivery. That's going to happen with the CLT decking. If that's delayed at all, obviously the crane's going to have to be on site at all. And then things like the sustainability team, if we're going to add solar panels onto it, we're going to have to bring the crane back on site after basically everything's done and the project's at least weather tight. So yeah, our 100-ton crane will be on site for about 5 months. We'll have it weather tight in another 5 months after that. And then we left quite a bit of time for all the interior finishes and things like that, because we really don't have any idea what the lab equipment is going to be in those buildings or in the building. And then just some of the things that we did for the schedule overall is we had to identify the critical path, what's exactly like completely essential to the schedule and what can be, based around other things. Obviously we had to contact SmartLand for the productivity that we were going to be able to do with the CLT decking and those members that we're going to have to utilize. And then obviously the weather conditions we had to consider. We have very long extreme winters up here. They're really unpredictable, things like that. So we just had to make sure we considered that at all times.
Here's a risk analysis that we developed. This more or less is just anticipated risk. There's no guarantee on it. But it just goes over any risks that the project may face, along with the cost that the risk will have and who will be responsible for it. And then along with that, we also provide a risk response strategy and the cost of that strategy to face these risks. Some of the important risks, which we already outlined, is like material shortage and delays, like unforeseen site conditions, stuff like that are all anticipated risks that you could probably see with this project. A couple other important ones, as was mentioned earlier, there's a steam tunnel running directly under the building. It's about 20 feet deep, and that's pretty close to the grade of the bottom of the basement. So when the contractor excavates that, they will have to be mindful and do their best to protect that steam tunnel. Another one, weather delays. Unpredictable weather is a huge risk up here, especially in the winter. The best way to face this is to follow the critical path on the schedule very closely and provide weather clauses in the contract. Here's our construction staging plan. You can see the project site there, along with that lot 1 staging area. Those will both have 6-foot high perimeter fencing around them with a privacy screen. And then there's also a secondary laydown down by the facilities, which would be just secondary materials that aren't real important, but you need on site. And for that lot, right now it's a sand lot, but we provide in our estimate that we would gravel that lot and also offer the option to pave it. As we mentioned, the questions earlier about moving parking to lot 24, and then the question of why not use lot 24 for staging. It would be, number one, a safety concern, having all this construction traffic go throughout town to get to this project. Along with just a logistics concern, because it's gonna cause great delays. Most of those materials have to be transported by loader. So a loader is gonna be running up and down town. I don't know, it's probably about a half mile, 3/4 of a mile round trip. So all that's gonna do is delay the construction process. So we opted that the best option would be to use lot 1 along with the other lot down by facilities. And then shuttle the admin parking.
So to kind of close things out here, the micropiling and the CLT decking are going to add significant cost to the overall structure. Not only indirect costs, but the two activities are time consuming and they're also very risky with shipping and materials and everything. And that has potential to push our activities towards winter, which could cause some serious problems in the timeline, which is why we inflated our general conditions and have taken into account that it might stall production. To account for the uncertainty and the productivity of these items, we increased our contingency value, and probably looking back at it would have increased it even more. And then basically we anticipate construction to be completed in February of 2024.
So yeah, so just like the other groups, obviously the standard acknowledgements you want to make are Mr. Dowden, Dave Johnson, our Smart Lamb rep, Jake Cooter with facilities, and then our head of construction management department, Lynn Arman. These are just a couple of the references we used for typical micro pilings, things like that. The sheet piling that we'll have to do because between the ChemSci and the EERC, there's not enough room to have a typical slope that's safe with OSHA. So we're gonna have to drive some sheet piling in there just for the basement excavation and a couple other things like HED architects that were already mentioned. Just a couple more things you used.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you for a great presentation, construction management team. Is there any questions?
Come back here. Along the roadway that you're going to, along Cliff Drive, where you're going to be taking those materials. I do have to say there was quite a few potholes and stuff. The road conditions kind of not the best. So is there going to need to be an enabling project to make there's a lot of potholes even that are that rated. So it seems like if you're putting in colors to bring stuff up the floor.
Yeah, I believe we included in at least in our estimate, like an alternative to pave that road afterwards, because there's gonna be a lot of, like you said, loader traffic that's gonna be on it, and then the just-in-time delivery that's gonna bring semi trucks and stuff like that, so.
Typically, a lot of times to do with a project like this, the school is already thinking about the fact that it's going to cause issues with the road, so. I don't know for sure what they actually have in the plans, but a lot of times they'll actually set money aside for a road reconstruct afterwards.
And I would like to add to, being the nature of the work, the HSM building being commercial construction, the road work being road work, the owner would most likely want to utilize 2 separate prime contractors to accomplish both of those projects.
Great. Any more questions? Well, I'd like to thank all of my students in this class. I thought it was a huge success. You succeeded in accomplishing the scope of work. Hopefully you can look back on this experience when you come back to campus and see the actual HSM building, that you've had some connection with it. Say, hey, senior design project, we actually did a mass timber build of it. So a couple of things. If you all want to have access to everybody's final report, it's on Canvas, so you can download those. Since it's all one big project. I'd like to thank everybody. So we'll give one more round of applause. Thank you all for coming. That concludes this session. Thanks, Wyatt.
Finalized design, this one now?
Are you been around?
Oh, it's still around. This one's actually retired.